Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sales Dojo here in Cedar Park, Texas. Thank you for joining us. We have here Brad and Victoria, our veteran agents. We have Kristen, our new agent. So thank you for joining us. We talked to Kristen yesterday about her experience and sounding great on the phone. So we're very excited to see that you're continuing to produce and you guys are continuing to build your book. So today, what we're talking about is helping people understand their Medicare when they are struggling financially. I want to start with you, Brad, and then we'll go into clients that are they are designated, like with Medicaid or extra help, that they physically or that financially can't afford supplements. Mm-hmm. So let's build from talking to you first, Brad. When you're talking to somebody, could be a client, and they're saying to you, look, I'm hitting financial struggles, or I'm just having a tough time affording this supplement plan. How do you handle that objection?
Well, unfortunately, this is a recurring theme these days. A lot of people are really strapped, Social Security, and it is an issue. Let's face it. A lot of people are on Plan G. If they're on Plan F, maybe we can get them down to Plan G, but we always have other options as far as other plans. High deductible Plan F or G. Of course, they're assuming more risk with that. But we used to say, if you can't afford your plan, you can't afford to get sick. Because the opposite side of the coin, you could lose the farm, without a Medicare supplement. Of course, you have Advantage plans too, as another option. But it's not easy, especially when people get into bad health situations. Mm-hmm. It's tough to switch.
Yeah.
What are the alternatives? Go back to just standard Medicare, get an Advantage plan, or potentially reduce coverage. But yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, it is a tough conversation because when you're talking to them, they're thinking that I need to budget my monthly budget or however they want to budget. And what happens is they think the first thing that has to be cut is their insurance. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't use it, so I think I can cut that out of my budget. I need to buy groceries. I have other bills I have to pay. So what's the first thing that has to go? Well, I don't use my insurance, so let's see if we can cut corners and either abandon the plan or get into Advantage plans. So yeah, those are hard discussions. That's why I talk to them about both options. But talking to especially these other agents who are coming on, they are so easy to get people on Advantage plans, and I don't like to do that. The Advantage plan is, I think, the last bastion of hope where I always ask them, do you need to replace your Medicare supplement premium to buy groceries? That is the abject bottom choice. It's like, if you can't afford groceries, then we could talk Advantage plans. But if you're just strapped for cash, if you can't afford the Medicare supplement, you can't afford to be sick. So we got to work. I like that angle as well. What about you? What experiences have you had with talking to new clients as well as other clients that are trying to get out of their plans because they think they can't afford it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that fall in this gray area where they're not Medicaid eligible, yet budget's really tight. They're probably right there on the borderline. So I really try to talk to them about, have the conversation with them as far as, have you ever thought about applying for Medicaid? Are you on Medicaid? Do you qualify? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever, submit an application? Do you know what Medicaid is? Because I want to get that out, either rule that in or rule that out, because that's a huge factor in what we can and cannot do. So especially people who are saying that right away the budget's tight. Anyway, so if it seems like they might be Medicaid eligible, I'm going to point them in the direction of applying for it. Mm-hmm. And giving them a to-do list. 1, call Medicaid. 2, call me back with what happens. But I'm very budget conscious for all people because not everybody will voice that right away. It's nice when right away they say, you know what, I need something, the budget's tight. And I'm like, loud and clear, got it. Mm-hmm. But some will not say that. They will not admit that they're, it's tight for them. Mm-hmm. And so I address it as I do with everything, I always say, just address the elephant in the room. Especially, I'll ask them, have you been shopping for insurance? And if they say yes, they have been, I'll say, okay, what kind of prices have you seen out there? And they'll tell me kind of what they've seen. And I'm like, okay, is that seeming like it's something that's going to fit in your budget? And depending on their reaction, we go from there. Even if they say, hey, this is like the first conversation they've had about Medicare, and I give them a price quote. Actually, before I give them a price quote, I'll say, have you thought about what's in the budget? Sometimes they're just like, I have no clue. I have no clue how much this costs. I don't know what to expect. You got to tell me. So, go from there, give them a price quote. And right away, I'm like, I just, I try to keep a really open atmosphere, like a no judgment, atmosphere. And I'll quote my price and I'll be like, you know your budget better than anyone. How comfortably does that fit into your budget? And usually right away they'll feel that they can either say, yeah, that's actually kind of what I was budgeting for, or, that's just not going to work for me. So you have to address these things, whether it's somebody who's potentially Medicaid eligible or not. Everybody, you want to address the budget and find out whether it's a big deal or not.
Yeah. So with you being a newer agent, you're talking to newer clients. Are you going to have people that are objecting right away because of cost?
No, I had one today and she was a little bit, this is the first one I really had like about cost, but we were going to sign her up for 3 different plans to try and get it like cheaper. But then it came out like around the same thing, maybe like $1 or $2 more for a little bit extra coverage. And she didn't like decline it, but she didn't accept it either. And she was like, let me think about it for a week. And I was like, okay. But other than that, this is the really only like cost I've run into an issue with.
Is that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I understand, because what I've always functioned under the universal maxim, people pay for what they want to pay for. They will purchase something if they want it and they will make it work. It's just that in their mind, they think I can't make this insurance thing work. I got to cut costs. But you're probably healthy. So, Brad, let me ask you, when you have somebody that's really healthy, but also is, trying to cut corners with their insurance, what tell me about how you propose the high deductible. What does that look like?
Well, most people really don't want to go into a high deductible situation.
Right.
We have people on VA coverage and they want something else. High deductible is great for that, or if they're considering an Advantage plan, high deductible is also a good option. But normally I'll try to keep them into the standardized plan simply for the fact they're going to be protected. And generally a lot of times people forget or never been told the value of the plan. They don't know what it covers. They don't really know what it does and the value of it. Once you build the value and they find out exactly what it is, it's kind of a no-brainer. Just like you said, people will pay for what they want or feel there's a value to it.
Right.
If they just see this monthly number going out the window and they're not using it, well, that's not what the plan's for. It's that one time you get hospitalized, it's going to pay for a whole lifetime worth of premiums.
Right.
And I use that line all the time. I have a Plan G myself, don't really use it, but I know the value of it. And that's what you have to really reiterate. Sometimes you have to go over things again and just explain what it does and how much protection it is. Incredible peace of mind. And that's really what seniors are looking for the most part. I generally don't like to talk about alternate plans, Plan N, high deductible plans, because I know at some point you're going to get a phone call. And some people, super healthy, high deductible plan, great. If they have any medical issues at all, you're going to get a phone call, hey, I want my standard plan back.
Yeah.
Because they're just cutting checks and it's just nickel and diming them to death. But I think for the most part, it just comes down to building value again and reminding them what they have, because if they don't use it, they don't know what it does anymore, even though it may have been explained in the beginning. So, yeah.
Can I just say, I feel like the name of the Plan G high deductible or F high deductible is just bad marketing. Make it
Yeah.
sound worse and scarier than it is.
I know,
Yeah.
high deductible people.
It's higher deductible, but not high in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion.
Well, not really. And I mean, you still have Medicare Part B paying 20% of your doctor bill. Of course, you have to meet the Part B deductible, but what are you going to pay, $50, $60? You see the doctor once a year, it's not a huge thing. Some people market the high deductible plans as the best option. There's consultants out there that say, hey, over time, this is going to save you X amount of money. However, if you start to need that plan every year, you would have been better off with a standard plan G or plan F. So we don't know what the future is going to behold. I had a friend of mine actually call me. It's like, Brad, I've got a Cigna plan. I'm paying $150 a month. I'm perfectly healthy. I need to reduce my costs. And I'm like, bro, we can get you the high deductible plan, $50 a month. Perfect. Let's do it. Well, 2 months later, she's in line for a liver transplant out of the clear blue. She never needed to have that done, but her medical bills, she's paying that deductible now. You just don't know. It's all about, insurance is about the what ifs. People slip, they fall, they break a hip. I had it, and I run into this all the time because this time of the year, people flip over to Advantage plans. They hear the marketing, they get the spiel. Well, lo and behold, I get a call in the springtime, Brad, can I get my supplemental plan back? Because then they find out what it does. They find out they're going to be restricted. They've got all these copays. When the exact thing happened, she fell, broke her hip. Now she's laid up in the hospital for 3 weeks, paying $300 a day. And she's in her 80s. Luckily, we got her plan back. But switching plans is, there's always a blowback with that. I mean, something's going to go wrong. And saving the money, save it somewhere else. Look at your budget. If it's that severe of a financial situation, you probably should be on Medicaid. If it's that dire, and people are like, well, what do I do there? And you tell them what they need to do with Social Security and at least apply, because they could get at least some relief. Maybe not a QMB, but get some help,
Yeah.
But I mean, more and more as time goes forward, I mean, this is a conversation that we always get.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time, but I just can't afford the premium anymore.
Yeah.
And what's going on? What's your situation? Well, my husband died. We did have 2 incomes. Now I'm on his Social Security. That's it. And then you look into the Medicaid parameters and different options.
Yeah, it's tough because, Medicaid is for those that need financial assistance. It is, when you talk to people that are on Medicaid, they don't really understand the scope of what Advantage plans do. They just think, oh, I have Medicaid, so I'm taken care of. A lot of people that I've talked to recently that are under 65, they are like, oh, I have my Medicaid. And it's like, well, you're actually on Medicare now. Medicaid is the primary because they are under 65 and they go past 65. So they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And then we get them Advantage plans because they're QMB. But let's talk about that for a second. Like, what conversations do you guys have for people who are on Medicaid?
People who are on Medicaid.
We're on Medicaid.
Just
Yeah.
Medicare, just Medicaid.
Yeah, we'll start with people who are on Medicaid. They could have an Advantage plan. They may not be familiar with it, but these people they are on state assistance.
Yeah.
What conversations are you having with them?
Like specifically people who are just on Medicare and just on Medicaid. Those are fun conversations.
Yeah.
Because they thought that that's all they need. And I'm like, oh, honey, I got some great news for you. Actually, how do I describe it? It's like, there's these plans. They're called dual eligible plans. And I break it down. You're teacher, so you could appreciate this. Dual refers to somebody on Medicare and Medicaid. And it takes, and I do a Captain Planet reference. I said, and those powers combined, you can get this Advantage plan that will kind of will honor both of those benefits and will increase it by plus tack on free dental, free vision. Sometimes you have to be very general, but sometimes free money for to pay for utilities, sometimes groceries, things like that. And you got to get them excited and realize, oh my God, do you realize what you have access to now?
Yeah.
Do you understand the wonderful world that is waiting for you? You didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
And they just get super pumped about it. Rarely when I put it like that are they like, yeah, it's still a no for me.
Right.
They're usually like, yes, what me? How can I get that? Oh,
Right.
me? I can get. I'm like, yes, you're the one. You
Right.
qualify, And they're like, oh, yay, let's talk about it. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. I mean, it's true. And I tell them, which is, I said, look, if you were my family member and these benefits were out there and you weren't accessing them, I'd want you to know about them, right? And they're like, yeah, you're damn right. I'm like, the hell, yeah, I'm right. Yeah, you're right. I'm right. Let's go look for this stuff, right? Look, and two, there's people who are like super happy about that stuff. There are some that are very proud. They're on Medicaid, but they're not proud of it. They are just like, no, I have that. That's all. I don't want to take advantage. I'm like, look. The state is the one that set the guidelines for this, right? You didn't go back and forth. They said, look, anybody that meets this criteria qualifies for it. You do. Okay, so go and get what they say you qualify for. Why struggle, right? Because they'll talk to me about how, I'm struggling with groceries and that. I'm like, why should you have to? I'm like, you worked all your life, and you usually the answer is yes. Okay, well, you paid into the system. Now you need it. So just take advantage, take what you paid for. That's what it's there for.
Yeah. What about you? Have you had conversations about Medicaid and Advantage plans?
Haven't had any. I think I had like one Advantage plan conversation when I first started, and they were trying to get off of it. And then I haven't had any Medicaid.
Yeah. What's crazy is that I was talking to an agent today who worked for an agency that was strictly Medicare Advantage plan. That's all they sold. And she's like, well, we tried to steer them to Advantage plans. And I'm like, you're telling me that you tried to not sell supplements?
Yikes.
I said, tell me, what did you say? Like, she doesn't work for them anymore. I'm like, what was the language that you used to get people to steer away from supplements? Well, first, she doesn't know a lot about supplements anyways.
I knew that.
And the second thing is that, we would say, well, supplements are really expensive.
Oh.
You pay a hefty premium and, you don't get all the benefits that you get with Advantage plans. And what we really want to do is get you a $0 premium plan. It's not going to cost you anything. You're going to have all these additional candy shop, as she calls, toy box of benefits, and just tie it in a bow and it's all to you. And it's like, I seriously had to sit there and I'm like,
wow. I
was in awe. She's like, yeah, after I started learning about supplements, I'm like, oh boy. I had to leave. Yeah. So it's like, that's why we're enrolling her here, is because it's not that we think Medicare supplements are better. It's not that we think that, it's not that we think it. It's that it is. It is a far superior product.
It's just facts.
Yes. And also makes you all more money, which is also good.
Yeah, and longevity.
And longevity, of course. Yeah. But I mean, that's what's these conversations about, like, with these agents that want to come on board, they're having a hard time, and our training is going to provide it. They're having a hard time understanding how Medicare supplements are better, because they're like, why would someone pay for something when they get this other thing that's free?
And then also, why as an agent would I make my sale harder for me?
Yes. Yeah. So you have these conversations all the time.
A lot of times I related back to, okay, when you were working, you had a group plan through work. What did that cost you?
Right.
It comes out of your check, but people forget these plans are costing hundreds of dollars a month, especially for a family plan. You have a network. You have a lot of copays and deductibles, very typically $6,000, $8,000 out of pocket, potentially. And now you have the best insurance in the world. There's nothing that compares, unless you're a politician or retired general or something.
Right.
Medicare supplement and standard Medicare is the best thing going for anybody. You're going to be protected. You're not going to have to worry about anything. You're not going to get the runaround. You go in, you see the doctor. Once you get your Part B deductible satisfied with the Plan G, okay, see you later. See you next time. You don't have to worry about anything. It's great, and you just have to put things back into perspective, because it's all relative. People forget. I mean, even if your Medicare supplement went up to $800 a month, it would still be a bargain for what it does.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. They don't understand the value of what they have for so little cost. And, on a high side, I mean, we've had people $500 a month, but even still, you go into the emergency room, I mean, it's going to be a big bill. You have a heart attack, it's going to be a really big bill. And you fall, I mean, any type of surgery.
Or chemo and radiation.
Yeah,
or
chemo,
dialysis.
Yeah, anything like that.
Anything heavy.
You can go to the specialty cancer centers. You can go to Mayo Clinic and get the top level of coverage. And your insurance company's not going to dictate who you can see and what they're going to pay for. Doctor deems it medically necessary, it's approved.
Yeah.
And some people are hypochondriacs; they overuse it. But it's there if you need it. I mean, there's so many pluses to Medicare supplements.
Yeah, but that blows my mind though, and you guys get this too, where it's like when people are on PPOs and HMOs, Advantage plans, they think that's the way of Medicare. So it's like when you tell them like, hey, guess what? Medicare, you have carte blanche to go wherever you want. You don't have to, it's a non-managed care plan. And when they hear non-managed care, they think, oh, it doesn't coordinate with any benefit. No, non-managed care means you don't have to adhere to a network. Like their whole life, their group plan is like, okay, I have a HMO, I got to find the doctors. But it's like, I know you have not read about this, but you have to understand what you are about to enter. You are about to enter us, where you can go wherever you want, and you are about to get whatever you want should anything happen to you. I like people, my favorite type of arrogant person is like, oh, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. I don't need a supplement. I will be on an Advantage plan and I'll be fine. It's like, oh my goodness, you are a prophet. You know how to foresee your health? How? Please tell me I could get a little bit sarcastic, but the point is that like, the reason that is designed this way is so that way you don't have to worry about it. You know what's going to happen to you when something happens to you. And that's, you're going to be taken care of and you're going to get no medical bills. That you can guarantee. And they have a hard time understanding that, especially these Advantage plan folks, because the way that they've been taught Medicare is that it is tantamount to their group coverage, which is adhering to a network, which is adhering to copays and deductibles. And it's like, we sound like the crazy, stamping our stick, like, town crier. And it's like, no, we're the truth. We're the soothsayers.
Here's the problem too, is that managed care is more than just a network, right? It is managed care.
Yes.
And there are plenty of ways to go ahead and manage that care. And by managed care, they mean manage cost. So if you're running off a fixed capitation rate, the more money I make for my investors and my shareholders, the better I am, because that's my fiduciary responsibility as an owner of an insurance company, right? Or a CEO or the board or whatever. Fiduciary responsibilities to the investors, not to the customers.
Right.
So what ends up happening is, it might have a great network. What are the approvals like? What is the actual step therapy that you have to do? What are the hurdles that you have to jump and the administrative hell that you have to go through to get that care that they are required to give you? That's where it gets into big problems. That's why they've had studies only a few years ago with 60% of all Medicare Advantage plans, period. Not just every audit conducted by the GAO and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services had 60% of them had illegal denials and delays of claims and payments. It's not and by the way, we all know how regulators are. They want to do a good job, right? A lot of them are elected in there. Most of them are appointed in there. They want to do a good job. But guess what? They're confined by the constraints in which they have to operate on. And finding a multi-billion-dollar a quarter company, 10, 20, $30 million, or even $100 million for a quarter, when they made an extra $2 billion for their investors on that, I'll write it off. In fact, there are entire jobs on that. What was that great movie? Fight Club.
Yeah.
That was a guy, it was a
Claims loss
mitigator, or management mitigator, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, he would go there and go, for recalls, for automotive recalls. Well, replacing this part in all the cars that we sold is going to cost us $1 billion. All of the legal fees and all of the settlements is only going to cost $200 million. So your life is going to be less than this nut.
Oh my goodness.
And that's the way, but that's the,
Yeah.
it's not cold. It's not evil. Well, it's not intentionally wrong or evil. It's just business.
It's in the capitalist way of
Right.
doing things.
It's cold and indifferent.
Yeah.
But that's what you want to
Yeah.
point out to these people, especially when
What's that?
Cardi's busy. You can do it.
Okay, Victoria's coming.
Hey, finish your thought real quick first.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say at the tiny microphone is that
We're getting one.
right, you have to
She's coming.
point those things out, right, to these people who just won't get it through their thick head
She's coming.
that
She's coming.
Yeah.
you know why
20
advantage
seconds.
plans are
20 seconds.
are not as good as supplements. You know, you
Yeah.
have to point these things out. Look, Medicare is the most generous giver of benefits out there. They don't have anybody to answer to. This is why they do what they do. They are Medicare. You paid in the system. These advantage plans, you know who they're the ones deciding who what gets paid and what doesn't. And we all know, and everybody knows this when you put it this way, we all know who they're looking out for, not you. They're looking out for shareholders, for themselves, yada, yada, yada. Usually that puts, you know, just being that raw and direct and, you know, non-candy coated over it. Usually people, they seem to get that for the most part. So.
Yep.
You know, and
point.
unfortunately, so many people are misled out there, you know, oh, it's the same as my Plan F, it's just a zero premium, you know, or I still have my standard Medicare covering me at 20% or 80%. You know, and that's another thing we have to deal with. We have to go through the education process and, you know, tell them exactly what they have and the limitations. Generally, they have to look it up if they have an advantage plan. They don't even know what their out-of-pocket is. Have you read the fine print?
People have and agents themselves have a fundamental misunderstanding of what Medicare actually is. Medicare, original Medicare, is just insurance. That's it. That's why you have a beneficiary ID. You've already paid into the system. You continue to pay in the system. It's not like Social Security where you're sitting there and paying front-loaded. You're paying for people that are living today. Hopefully that'll be around with you tomorrow. You're Part A. You're front-loading. That's what you're essentially doing. You're front-loading premium for your whole life, and it's matched by your employers. Or if you're independent, you better cover all of it, right? That's a huge amount of money. Huge amount of money by the time you retire. That covers your hospitalization. You're good. Right? You have your fee schedules, you have all this other stuff, but people don't realize that because Medicare is insurance, it's also the wellspring for all of your group insurances as to what they were engineered towards later. There's a reason why most group insurances are 80-20 coverage, because Medicare was the one that standardized that. 80-20 coverage for outpatient and doctor services.
And also the usual and customary fees. They've done the research. They know what's a
Right.
fair profit margin.
Oh, even better. They have been tracking fees and they've been tracking stuff since Medicare was put out in 1966. And during the mass data migration where they went from analog to digital, when they went through all these other things that came in there and started doing like HMOs and PPOs, Medicare factored in and factors in depreciation of innovative technologies and stuff. They know what an MRI machine costs. You ever wondered why it still costs for a lot of carriers out there $7,000, $8,000 for MRI? The technology is 40 years old. An MRI machine isn't a $100 million piece of machinery that only one hospital in a state has anymore. They're everywhere. GE throws them out like they're Vespas. I mean, they just make them every day.
Yeah.
And they're a $1 million piece of machinery. Well, the problem is that while Medicare said, no, that's probably, I mean, depending on the image itself, anywhere from $300 to $700. These other carriers out there, other insurance providers and other healthcare networks, because they're all messed up, they go, well, I mean, $7,000, that's a lot. Just give me half off. Well, it's still 10 times more than you should be paying.
Yeah, either that or, oh, you don't need that.
Right. And that's a big problem. And the issue is that Medicare, if people go, well, doctors get paid great on Medicare. Medicare builds in a profit margin.
Yeah.
The problem is that with these other systems that are in place that have come up since the 80s and 90s, what they've really built on is bureaucracy. There are 7 administrators for every healthcare professional in this country. Think about that. How are you paying them? Well, you're paying them off of extra overhead that doesn't need to exist. And that's a good example. The head of MD Anderson and the medical college for UT, which is MD Anderson, world's best cancer treatment center ever, will never say anything bad about it, right? I believe that man makes on parity, which is sad in both aspects, on parity or right, either near parity or maybe even a little bit more then the head coach of UT football. That's how much money that organization, that's a teaching hospital. That's a state school hospital.
Well, there's so much fat over there at MD. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she went in for cancer, and she had a social worker. I mean, just breast cancer, a little lump, took care of it, but it's mandatory that you talk to one of their social workers.
That's a cost.
It's $500 for 45 minutes. And she said, I didn't want to talk to this person. They did nothing. They came in, they said, about $500. Of course, her supplement covered it. But there is so much waste and mismanagement in there. And oh my gosh, the amount of Medicare fraud. I mean,
By the way, what need for a social worker do you have if you have a Medicare supplement and a Medicare, Medicare?
Okay, you know, you heard
You have no
cancer,
bill. There's
you know,
no social work needed.
It's like, oh, my life is over. I mean,
Yeah.
But this is a mandatory thing. It's like, well, you have to have it, and you have to come see us for the rest of your life for follow-up. Otherwise, you're out of the system, you know. So
mandatory visitation.
yeah, you have to go back and see them. You can't see anybody else. You got to come
So
back.
it's like a cancer probation officer.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, she's fine. She
CPO.
didn't even have treatment. You know, this thing's taken care of. But, you know, the system is so.
I wonder.
I mean, they figured out how to make money off of
Right,
it.
but I wonder, like, I mean, it sounds like, just using your example, it was stage 1, you know, very minor polyp, removed. Did you do any radiation, chemo at all, or is it just
Nothing.
Okay. What is her visitation? Does she have to come back in 6 months? 2 years?
Like,
Like,
for her, it's once a year.
First off,
wow, that's still a lot.
keep in mind HIPAA has another component into it because you talk about the security and stuff like that, but part of that title on that is portability. So it's not like they can hold her records. She can go to any provider she wants under Medicare, period.
Yeah.
They can go, well, we're not an arson. No, you have to give those records over. You have to transfer them to my new provider. You don't get to tell me where I go on if I'm on Medicare, period. And now if I'm on an Advantage plan, different story. But if she's on original Medicare, no. And that's another thing. People, they create these captive markets. Healthcare is a captive market. That's what people don't understand. There's no transparency to it. You know, you can't go compare and shop rates for a treatment. They won't tell you, oh, well, it's kind of hard to tell. Really? Well, you were really great at giving me an itemized bill saying that I paid $40 for a set of gauze.
Right.
Right? That I had a $7 tongue depressor. You know, you have great $9 aspirin. You have great ways of telling me what it cost after you give it to me. So, I mean, there's a lot that needs to happen in the industry as a whole. But realistically speaking, and that's ultimately why people look at original Medicare. I just read the New York Times. Every year, these guys come out with, well, should you stay on original Medicare or get a Medicare Advantage plan? And they talk about the pros and cons of each, original Medicare by itself or a Medicare Advantage plan. They never mention a Medicare supplement, ever.
Why do you think that?
Well, when you're running an ad on a national news source, and the majority of your advertisers are advertising Medicare Advantage plans, you're not going to really give them an option at this time of the year to go, oh, we should talk about supplements too, because I'm telling you right now, the carriers, they like money, but they like more money, and that's an Advantage plan right now.
Maybe, or maybe it's because of the CMS standardization regulation that they don't want to put anything to lean toward supplements because they're all standardized.
Will not apply to a news article. This is the New York Times.
Okay.
This is not a agent writing this. This is not a carrier writing this.
Okay.
However, when you sit there and look at it, go, how do you miss an entire segment of the market that half of the country uses,
Right.
and leave that out of a conversation on a full multi-page?
Did you
news
write a
article?
letter to the editor saying that?
No,
Send me the article. I'll do it. When was it released? It's probably way back.
no, like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, dude, send that article to me because I'll write like, hey, where's the portion of Medicare supplements?
Right. Where's that portion?
Yeah.
Because
where
that's
their money comes from.
And
Right.
they're allowed to just leave it out like that and just
You can do whatever
act
they
like
want.
it's non-existent.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not libel.
It's
Because-
a glorified advertisement.
right.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But that's the problem. And contextually speaking, we can sit there and talk about it all the time, and we can keep on educating. And by the way, most people that'll be watching this, especially consumers, they don't care. They've already tuned out,
Yeah.
right? Because this is confusing to them. It can be frustrating for us because we're Medicare specialists, we're experts in the field, and fixing a lot of these problems isn't hard, right? It just takes a little willpower and a little thought.
It's in New York, no underwriting.
Yes, year round for Medicare supplements.
Year round. So, but I mean, can you get a Medicare supplement no underwriting when you don't have one.
Yes.
Okay, so you could start it
Yes.
in the middle of the year or anytime and
See,
get,
but
but they're
here's the-
super expensive.
Yeah, it's
Super
not gonna be
expensive,
cheap,
and
that's
most
right.
carriers do not operate in New York for that reason, because at that point there is no gamble. The deck is stacked against you on that, so they don't want to play there. The thing is that insurance, it's a capitalist manifestation of a socialist principle. We all share into this pot, and when someone of us needs it, it's going to pay out. The problem is when you can put too many conditions on it, it starts to break. And the other problem is that if you don't have enough conditions that benefit both parties, in other words, a level playing field, you have to accept that you might not use this. It's not for that. And you have to accept that if you choose not to use it, you can't go after the fact.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd all be buying car insurance the minute we got fender bender, not before. So the problem is that when you create regulations or you create blanket statements like that, it actually hurts the market, right? So, because then you won't have participation, and that's why you have New York doesn't have participation in this market. So, I mean, it's a great intention. Oh, everyone should be able to get insurance. Well, the insurance carriers go, yeah, but this guy didn't pay for 5 years like this other guy, and he's just going to come in and cost $500,000, and that's going to cause the other guy that was being prepared and contributing to this social contract that we have in good faith. It's hurting him. So I'm not going to play that game. So they need to work on that. The rest of the country needs to work on ways of actually communicating this effectively. I mean, advantage plans are good in rural, in urban areas, especially with good networks. But it's not just the network; it's every other thing that they can do and every other hurdle they can put in place as a stopgap to not have to pay. Make it more difficult. Oh, now I need to go through 3 levels of step therapy. Oh, did you get this other test? Well, I don't need that blood enzyme type. So there's a tumor right there. Well, your doctor has to go ahead and sign a waiver of that, and we'll see if we can approve it. Well, that's another month and another month and another quarter of not reporting a loss. So managed care is just managed cost. And quite frankly, for something I already paid for, I continue to pay for, I don't need another middleman managing it for me, because that just lessens the quality of my service. It's the same thing with leads. We've been seeing this for years now. The more people that you have in a supply chain, the worse it gets. Look what's happening right now in global, the freaking Ukraine thing. The Russians can't even get gas to the front because there's too many corrupt individuals in between the supply chain.
You're getting tangential. We're pulling you back,
all right,
buddy.
But that's the same thing.
Yeah.
The shorter and more clean a supply chain is to the product that you're getting, the better the product is.
Yes.
So
I agree.
Let's not advantage plans, long supply chain, a lot of overhead, all this other stuff. Original Medicare, really streamlined, really fast, better product quality.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end. Just to bifurcate those two, like managed versus non-managed. Well, it's managed cost rather than managed care. I like using that. That's a good
and it's
idea.
not managed cost for the consumer. It's managed cost for the insurance carrier.
Insurance carrier, right. I like that. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I believe this is going to be our last one of the week. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So I want to wish you guys a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your family. And then we'll probably fire up. Buckley, we're going to do one on Friday. We don't know yet. No? Okay. So we might not. But if not, we will see you on Monday. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. And thanks, guys, for participating.
Of course.